We are live. Welcome to another Monday edition of Pred Talk here at Fish on Fire. I have a special guest tonight. He's not a player, he's not a coach, but he's been with the Orlando Predators for like 14 and a half years combined, right?
Absolutely.
So I have Mr. Dan Pearson here with me on Pred Talk. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Pat, for having me.
How we do things here, I'll say some of it's off the cuff, but a lot of people don't know the name Dan Pearson. You know, they may have seen the name in different things, but they get to know you. So what we do here is I ask you good questions, I ask you silly questions, and then we just BS. That's what we do. We have fun.
Sounds good.
And if you need something to drink, let me know, because Morgan is on top of everything here. All right, we'll get you something to eat later on too. To start out, where are you from?
Actually, I'm from Emporium, Pennsylvania. I went to school at West Virginia University. I moved to Florida back in 1981, where I was the Assistant Sports Information Director at Florida State for 8 great years. Had a chance to move to Orlando when the Boardwalk and Baseball theme park opened.
I remember that.
Spent about 4 years with that organization, actually 5 after they closed down. They kept me aboard to work on the baseball end until they got rid of their contracts with the Kansas City Royals and their minor league team. And then I was doing a little bit of odds and ends when I got a call from Don Disney and had a chance to come to work with the Orlando Predators in 1993.
So 93, you were with the Predators from 93 to...
My first stint was 1993 to 2000. That's when the XFL came by, and Mr. McMahon offered me a lot of money to jump ship, which I took. I didn't realize it was only going to last a year. And then after that happened, Dave Berryman, who was the GM of the Orlando Predators at the time, offered me a chance to come back, and I did, and I ended up working another about 7 years with the Preds.
That's awesome. I mean, I pulled it up just to looking it up because I'd never met you before until tonight. And I'm going like, oversaw all public relations, media, community relations, all that. You developed and maintained a crisis management plan with the Predators?
Well, actually, yeah. I mean, anytime you work in PR, that's got to be part of it. And unfortunately, we had a couple incidences. The most serious one was the death of Fran Papsadero, that I had to deal with that. But again, anytime you work in PR, that's always going to be part of the job.
Oh. No more sign there. But when people type in their comment with questions and this and that and comments, and it'll come up right up on here. So if you come on there and I don't see it, jump on it.
Okay.
All right. So are you married? Single? I'm
married. I've been married for about 30 plus years, which I would like to say that's 210 years in dog age. But it's been a great partnership, and we're still together.
Kids?
One son who is an accountant for Lockheed Martin, and he's doing great, and just couldn't be prouder of the way he turned out.
Lockheed Martin's good. My mom used to work there. She retired from Lockheed, well, back when it was Martin Marietta. So it's changed over, but yeah, there. Let's see, what is it? Nick Green says. Yeah, shut up. I don't pay attention to anything. That's Nick out there. I don't know. You probably know Nick, one of our Pred heads.
Absolutely.
Yeah. They all know you. That's why a lot of them are here tonight. So if you guys got any questions for Dan, you better speak up, all right? What about arena football do you enjoy most?
You know, the best way to answer that question is still a little quote from Jay Gruden. Somebody would always ask him, you have a chance, or you might have had a chance when your brother went with the Tampa Bay Bucks to maybe move on to the NFL or whatever. What is it about this game that you still stay here? And one of the things he said was, this is one of the few sports that allows you to have an outside life outside of football. And from that, he said, look, he goes, I get to go home, I get to watch my kids play sports, I get to do this, I get to do that. And he goes, frankly, I stay with this game because it's a great game. And for me personally, that's one of the things when Mr. Disney first hired me in 1993, I kind of felt like, okay, I'm going to do this for a year or two and maybe move on. And I fell in love with the game too, absolutely. Yeah. And I couldn't be doing anything else.
My wife and I, we've been season ticket holders since '03, so we got a late start as far as season ticket holders go with a lot of the people that are in here. But yeah, the fast-paced action, in your face right there. You're so close to the game as a fan, because we got a lot of new fans this season that watch, the show, and they're going like, I can't wait for it to start. I can't wait for it to start. I hear so much about it, but yeah, I mean it's so quick. 60 to 50, that's a low-scoring game in arena football.
Well, it's not only just the offense and stuff involved, but it's the passion the players do have for the game. And it's one of the things that you really realize that it means so much to them. I mean, throughout century, throughout the life of the old Arena Football League, with the exception of a couple quarterbacks after the NBC contract, nobody ever got rich playing the game.
No.
And yet, year after year, they were always there, and they were always looking to get better. And some of those guys were fortunate enough to advance to the NFL. But the fact of the matter is that guys like Barry Wagner, who played in this league for 10, 12, 14 years, there had to be some passion and love for the game in it for them to last that long.
Oh, yeah. Well, back in the AFL, they got paid a lot more than they are right now in the NAL. Things change, times are different.
Well, what's really funny is that because of my experience, I know that back in when I first started in '93, it was $600 a game, and it was right around that, a little bit more for quite a few years until NBC got involved in the game and a few other things happened, and then they started having a minimum salary of $30,000 a year.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, for a player to sit there and put his body on the line times a year for $30,000, there's a lot easier ways to make a living.
A lot easier ways. That's
exactly.
Yeah. Outside of sports, because you've done a lot of things in the sporting world. What do you like to do? What kind of hobbies you got?
Well, I'm probably the most dedicated bad golfer in history. I probably play 3, 4, 5 times a week, and I still can't quite figure it out. One of the things that was kind of interesting was that I picked up the game when I was like 40 years old, and by the time I was 50, I was almost proficient at it. I had a handicap of around 8 or 9, which wasn't terrible. And then all of a sudden, as I got older, I had a car wreck where I had a pretty severe concussion for about a year. I had a knee replacement. I ended up with a double bypass. The game kind of went to hell for the longest time. But then all of a sudden, about a month and a half ago, I put together like 5 rounds in the 70s on my 3rd career hole-in-one. I'm going, I got this figured out again. I'm good. And then right after that 3rd hole-in-one, I started shooting 90 again and dribbling the ball off the tee. So I don't know.
That's it. Yeah.
But between that and fishing, those are 2 of my favorite pastimes, and maybe a little bit of other things. But I've been fortunate enough to do some freelance work with the Osceola News Gazette and the Orlando Sentinel, a little bit of sports writing, keep involved in that.
You do a lot of writing.
I do. I still do a lot of writing. In fact, I always wanted to sit there and do a book on arena football, but the more I think about it, it would probably lead to 300 divorces and a few other people losing their jobs, so probably best not to bring those stories up.
Yeah, some of the stories are left in the locker room. Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's see, let's see here. Alan, of course you know Claw, Alan Duckworth. He said, let the BS begin, so I don't know what that is. All right. EJ Burt, I've had them both on the show here, Dan the Man, so... you got some fans there. Mary Beth Scott, you know Mary Beth, right?
I absolutely know Mary Beth, one of the great employees of all time of the Orlando Predators.
I say that all the time too.
She's unbelievably awesome and incredibly dedicated.
You know Jason Lucas?
Absolutely. Jason was one of my first guys that I actually hired a couple different times and different things, and he was a tremendous help to me when we worked in the XFL and helped me out a little bit with the UFL. And of course, he was always there. Jason's. I would like to just say one thing about Jason, though, is that he also drew football. all those years when he was writing for Arena Fan website. Just tremendous, and really a great guy. Always had a lot of respect for him.
He's come here. He lives on the coast, and he's come here a couple of times, for the show, which is awesome. So what little bit that I've met him, I like him. He's a good dude.
Well, like I said, Jason was there from really the beginning, and one of the things that I got to tell this one story, if you'll indulge me for a second.
Man.
This is back when Perry Moss was the head coach of the Orlando Predators. Les Moss was the assistant coach, and this story dates back to about 1994, 95, somewhere in there. Back then, we played a summer season. And in the middle of August, it was 190 degrees out.
Yeah.
And as my good friend Ben Bennett can attest, Perry Moss was as old school as a coach as you will ever find. He absolutely believed in conditioning. So they'd be out there practicing in 100-degree heat, and then Perry would make them run gassers for 20 minutes afterwards. Well, my good friend Webby Yum Yum Burnett, wasn't much for the gasser thing. And what he would realize is when we hit period number 24, that was the last period of the day, and Perry would make him run afterwards. So he would always excuse himself to walk to the other end of Thunder Field to go to the portalette. Coach, I got to go to the bathroom, and then walk down.
You know what? That's not the first time I heard this story.
Well, what would happen is after about 1 or 2 days, you would look down there and you'd see Webby sticking his head out of the portalette to see if they were done running yet. It was a genius move on Webby's part. Unfortunately, Perry was a lot smarter than Webby thought he was. The third day, and this is going to be some colorful language, but because it's Perry Moss, I think I have to use it. You hear Perry go, "God damn it, Les! You call the city tomorrow. I want that portalette moved from that end of the field to this end of the field." And that was the end of Webby taking a break by going to the bathroom so he didn't have to run.
That's funny. And of course, Jason remembers that. Mary Beth said you're good at cross-stitching?
Actually, that's a little habit I actually took up during my years with the Predators, my early years with the Predators. You'd have those long plane rides to San Jose and stuff, and my wife actually did a lot of cross-stitching, so I started doing it. And then I kind of let that thing go away, and I hadn't done a cross-stitch in 20 years, and then all of a sudden COVID comes back, and we're kind of resigned to sitting around the house all day, and I said, well, maybe I'll pull one out and do it. And I did one, and then I realized that it really wasn't all that much fun anymore when your eyesight starts to go to bad and you have to count stitches. And I finished it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I used to.
Yeah. I thank God I never did any of that. I'm not talented enough. I've tried to take up the guitar. Right hand's a rock star. Left hand, not so much.
Well, I can never do the music thing because I'm tone deaf, can't carry a note in a bucket, I can't read music, and I have no musical talent at all. In fact, I remember when you were in grade school, they would give you these aptitude tests. I would score in the below 0 percentile in music, so couldn't do anything with it.
That's okay.
But I love to sing, even though it's not pretty.
Karaoke on a drink night, you know.
5 tequilas and I'll do Killing Time with Clint Black with the best of it. It won't sound good, but I'll try.
I'm a Beastie Boys fight for your right to party kind of guy. So, to date, what professional achievement are you most proud of?
Well, actually, I have to go back. I probably have to go back to that incident we talked about earlier about Fran Papsadero. And one of the things that always would happen is that when Orlando wasn't fortunate enough to get to the Arena Bowl, the league would always send me to the Arena Bowl for a week to be on the Arena Bowl task force. And that horrible night when Coach Gruden called me at 2 o'clock in the morning to let me know what happened, and then I just realized the amount of work and things that had to be done.
Right.
And I can say unequivocally that it was the hardest 36 hours of my life, operating on no sleep, but the first thing I had to do was go wake up the commissioner and let him know what was going on.
Yeah.
And waking up David Baker at 4 o'clock in the morning isn't really a fun thing to do to begin with.
I'm sure.
But I set up with him for about an hour talking about what needed to be done. And the only good part is that, well, it wasn't a good part, but it was fortunate that the Arena Bowl was in Tampa, so it was a short drive back to Orlando.
Right.
But then notifying the local media, getting with Jay and talking about what had to be done, we felt we had to do a press conference. We had it in our office that day. I didn't anticipate that Tampa and Jacksonville and even Miami sent reporters up to it. So from that standpoint, I wish I would have picked a bigger venue. But we get through with all that stuff, and it's now 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm sitting there realizing that we had talked about doing a memorial service for Fran in both Orlando and then up in the native town of Boston. And it just occurred to me that because he was being cremated, we needed to get some large photos of him done. And at 5:30 in the afternoon, that's on a Friday afternoon, that's like not the easiest thing to worry about. And I recall that I was able to get a hold of the people that did our dasher boards and explain to them what had to be done. And they said, look, it's short notice, because this had to be done by Monday morning. That's when the memorial service was.
Right.
And the guy said, give me the 2 photos you want and I'll do something. Well, back in those days, computers, my photographer would just send me discs with numbers on them.
Yeah.
And I knew which photos I wanted to use, but I have discs from 10 games, and I'm going through, and I have to go through them one at a time trying to find these photos.
Scroll.
And the guy said, I need to have them by 6 o'clock at night. And he shows up at 6, and I go, I found the one, I can't find the other one I need. And I was in tears, and he goes, tell me which one it is, I'll find it for you. And long story short, that whole 2 or 3 day period, we put together a memorial golf tournament for him and a fundraiser at Wall Street Station and everything else. But one of the things that, from a professional standpoint, I was most proud of was able to hold myself together to get that stuff done.
Yeah.
And at the same time, just the sadness involved in it and everything else. Just one of the worst really days of my life. And the fact that on top of everything, Fran was such a good friend of mine, and we were so close. And he had always talked about, if Boston ever got an Arena Football League team, would you come work for me? And I always said, you know, Gruden's smart enough, he can do without me. I would come work with you. And so just one of the really toughest times, but maybe, again, the most pride I ever had in what we ever did.
It sounds like it. It sounds like the weight of the world was right there, and you had to take care of it. It sounds like you did.
It was, and on top of just one of the greatest guys I ever met. And the stories Fran Papsadero would tell were just so incredibly funny. And he would get involved in things. Fran was not the best manager of money, and he would always run out of money, and he was always looking to either borrow some from his family or his dad or stuff. And one day he said, Dad, I need $500. I was listening to him on the phone. He goes, can you send me $500? I can pay you back next week when I get paid, blah, 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 blah. And his dad would say, yeah, and then never send it. Every day, Fran would be looking for the Federal Express. And so one day, and again, this is part of maybe being a little bit of a jerk and liking to have a little bit of fun, but I took a Federal Express envelope and wrote Fran with the Predator address on it, and then I had a return address, Papsadero, Boston, Massachusetts, and no other address on it. And I typed on a sheet of paper, Fran, so sad, no money, love, Dad. And I stuck it in the envelope, sealed it, and I gave it to our secretary and said, call Fran in about 10 minutes and tell me he has a package. Fran was so excited to get that envelope. He comes in there, and Jay's standing there, and he goes, hey, look at this address. He didn't put his address on. That's so typical, Dad. So funny. He opens it up and reads it, and I thought he was going to start crying. But, again, that's just some of the fun you have in athletics, where you realize that feelings are second to actually having a good time.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the way it is in the office right now. Yeah, I know.
I do got one. I got one other story. I promised Ben Bennett I would tell because he thought it was hilarious. But for years we had a special teams coach named Mark Novell who was terrific at what he did. Absolutely terrific at what he did. In fact, in 1998 when we won the Arena Bowl, we scored 39 points in the second half without completing a forward pass. And in arena football, that is damn near impossible to do. And some of the ways we scored were on a field goal return for a touchdown, a safety on a kickoff that where Webby and Barry Wagner got George LaFrance in the end zone. I think Damon Mason ran back an interception for a touchdown, but Robert Gordon ran back an onside kick for a touchdown. A lot of the reason we won that game was because of our special teams coach. So when I tell this story, I want to emphasize that I think Mark Novell is a great coach. But we around, I want to say in the early 2000s, we had some budget cuts, and the owners told Jay he had to get rid of a coach. And unfortunately, special teams coach was the guy who had to go to save $10,000, $12,000 for a part-time salary. Well, fast forward about 2 years, and I'm sitting there talking to Jay, and he goes, "Hey, what do you think about bringing Novell back?" And I go, "Well, how are you going to do that?" Because we still had the money issues. And he goes, "Well, Mark said he would coach in exchange for something like either 50 or 100 season tickets that he would be allowed to sell." And I go, I don't see any downside to this other than one thing. Novell was so serious about special teams. Thursday was special teams day. It was a Friday game. And normally, with most teams, that's a 20-minute session. Novell would for an hour running through all these different things and scenarios. And Jay used to get, frankly, pissed about how long it would take him. But I go, "Jay, if you're okay with Thursday practices being a little bit long, I don't see any downside to this." So we bring back Mark Novell as our special teams coach, and about the third or fourth game of the year, we're playing at Arizona. And in this game, I am not kidding you, they run back not one, not two, but kickoffs for touchdowns. They would have ran back a fourth and fifth, but our kicker made the tackle on the inside the 5-yard line, which led to another 2 quick scores. We missed not one, not two, but 3 extra points. And then our kicker, I believe it was Jay Taylor, shanked a field goal that was no good from 20 yards. Long story short, all those bad things happened to us, and we end up losing the game something 61-59. Now after the game, we always mind a little bit, get a few adult beverages, but we're staying out at the Phoenix airport, so we had to talk the airport into having their van take us downtown. So I run upstairs, throw my computer bag in my room, come back down, get in the van, and we're waiting for Coach Moss to join us. Jay is in the front seat, just absolutely seething. Mark Novell is in the 5 rows back in the back of the van, not saying a word, and I'm sitting in the middle, listen to this dead silence, and I'm going, God, this is uncomfortable. And I'm just praying that Les will get there so we can get on our way. And 10 minutes later, we're still in there in dead silence. And finally, I swear to God, I could not help myself. I said, "Hey, Jay," and he goes, "What?" And I go, "I'm sure glad we brought back a special teams coach this year, or things might have got out of hand tonight." I swear to God, if Novell could have reached me, he would have killed me. Jay is just humping it off. We get to the bar. About a half hour later, I decided it's probably a good idea to buy the coaches a drink. And I walk up there, and Jay follows me up there and goes, "Pearson." I go, "What?" He goes, "That was the funniest damn thing I ever heard in my life." And he goes, "I would have laughed, but I didn't want Novell to get mad at me." And I go, "Is Mark still pissed?" And he goes, "I don't know if I'd go say hello to him for another couple days." And I go, "Okay." And in all seriousness, what happened at the end of the night, Novell walks up to me and he goes, "I wanted to punch you when you said that." And I go, "I know you did." I go, I'm sorry. And he goes, "And I would have, except for that I started to realize that was the funniest damn thing I ever heard." That's the infamous Nobel bringing back the special teams coach story.
That's funny. At least he had a sense of humor. Later.
Now that you got me on a roll here, I do got to tell one other story too.
Sure.
That I just. It's one of my favorite arena memories. But when the Iowa Barnstormers joined the league, they were pretty darn good. You probably recall Kurt Warner playing for them
Yes.
and everything else. And it turns out we played them 3 years in a row in the semifinals. In all 3 years, it was at Iowa. And Des Moines, Iowa is actually a great town to visit because the people are friendly and everything else. But back then, the Orlando Sentinel was letting Jerry Green travel and cover the games, the playoff games. So we're the first year we're in Iowa, and Jerry goes on the Saturday afternoon of the game. He goes, "Hey, I want to go to the Iowa State Fair. Do you want to tag along?" And I go, "Yeah, I'll go out there." So we're out there walking along, and we walk into. There were two things we wanted to go to. The first was the Iowa Pork Producers Tent, because you could get the best pork loin sandwich for like $1. So we thought that was the greatest thing in the world. And then the second thing, Jerry, we happened to stumble in. It was the farmer's exhibit. And there was a lady in there that sat there and sculpted a lady and a full-size cow out of butter.
What?
And Jerry thought that was the coolest thing ever. And the following year, he goes, "Hey, it was the same deal. It was the same time as the Iowa State Fair." He goes, "We got to go out and see what the butter lady made." So we go to the Iowa State Fair again, and we walk into the dairy producer's tent, and sure enough, this lady sculpted a full-size sculpture of Elvis Presley in butter. And so, again, Jerry was just amazed, thought this was great. Fast forward one more year, we're playing Iowa again during the fair, but the Sentinel had budget cuts and Jerry couldn't go, and he goes, "Promise me one thing." And I go, "What, Jerry?" He goes, "You got to go to the state fair and tell me what the butter lady did. I got to know." And so, "You know, Jerry, I'm going to do that for you." So I make my way out to the Iowa State Fair, and I walk into the butter or the dairy farmers exhibit again, and to my amazement, this lady carved out a life-size replica of the Last Supper. Jesus and the 12 apostles at a full-size table, life-size of butter. And I called up Jerry and I go, "Jerry, you're not going to believe this." And when I told him, he thought that was like the most amazing thing ever of all time. And just really funny stuff that's happened. Again, just arena football is obviously great. I do got to tell one more Jerry Green story.
Go ahead.
Back in the time, I was living in this house between Kissimmee and St. Cloud, and I had this black lab named Shadow, and I trained Shadow to go get the Orlando Sentinel in the morning. And I did it by steps, but I could train him, and I got him to the point where I could just open the door and go, "Shadow, newspaper," and he'd run out, get the Orlando Sentinel, bring it in, and I'd give him a dog treat. So one morning I wake up and I go, "Shadow, paper," and I open up the door and I'm in there cooking breakfast. No dog. Dog does not come back. And after about 5 minutes, I think it's kind of weird, so I decided I better go out and find out where he is. And all of a sudden, she comes walking in with a newspaper, but I look, and apparently her little dog mind, she thought, one newspaper, one cookie. I'm going to go get this son of a bitch, a whole bunch of them. I had 15 copies of the Orlando Sentinel on my thing, and she's like looking at me, "Count them, I want 15 cookies." I told that story to Jerry Green, and he thought it was funny, and I said, "Jerry, I'm just going to advertise if I ever have to get rid of the dog, I'm going to announce that it does come with a free subscription to the paper." So he did a little column note on it. It was pretty funny.
That's funny. Mag just got a question. He wants to know, a great fun memory while working for the Predators. He's already given a bunch of them right now. You know?
Well, one of my favorite stories, and it goes back to Webby Yum Yum Burnett. That was his nickname because he had this ferocious appetite. But one year, Webby was rooming with Henry Brown, another great Predator from the early 90s. But they were both pretty good players, so we actually had a deal where they actually got an apartment for the year. to help them save a little bit of money. And I don't even know if that was legal back then, but they had their own apartment that the team paid for the year. Henry worked in the off season, and he went to Thanksgiving dinner with his mom and dad, and he comes back and he has 2 sweet potato pies and a spiral cut honey ham. And he looks at Webby and he goes, "Now Webby," he goes, "Mama made you a pie and she made me a pie. You can have that whole pie. You do not touch my pie. Do you understand?" Webby goes, "Yeah, I understand." He goes, "I have to go to work, and when I come home, I better have my whole pie here." And he goes, "Yeah, no problem, Henry, no problem. Thank you." And he goes, "Okay." And then Henry said, "I'm getting ready to go to work," and Webby looks at him and goes, "Can I have a little bit of that ham?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's okay." Henry says he goes to work, comes back from his 8-hour shift, and his pie is untouched. He was relieved, but he could not find the ham anywhere. And he said, Webby, with my pie?" And he goes, "Or my ham?" And he goes, "I'm sorry, Henry, it was so good I couldn't help myself." He goes, "You ate the whole ham?" And he goes, "Yes." And Henry goes, "I should have left him specific instructions about how much ham he could have." But another quick story about Webby. I decided to do a program story on his ferocious appetite. And I looked at him and I said, "Webby, I heard a story one time that on a game with the Miami Hooters on the bus trip down, you and Ike Williams ate a whole 24-piece bucket of chicken on the way down to the game." And he goes, "Danny, sir, I'm telling you that's an unequivocal falsehood. That never happened." And I go, "Really?" And he goes, "No." He goes, "Ike had his own bucket."
There's no splitting there. Mary Beth Scott wants to know, how's your knee doing? Because I remember back, you know what, before we get to that, Mary Beth, because you were talking about Webby Yum Yum, he got that nickname because of his appetite. Is it true that you gave Kenny the Glove McIntyre his nickname, the Glove?
I'm only taking partial credit for that. Our old merchandise guy, Bob Flynn, also had a say in that. But what happened was, this is 1998, and there's 2 games left in the regular season. And I think at the time we were maybe 7-5 or somewhere in that neighborhood. And Jay in the defensive backfield, and he had a chance to sign Kenny, who was playing in the old World League of American Football in Europe, or NFL Europe at the time, yeah. Whatever. Their season was over, and Jay was fortunate enough to sign him. And I go, "Jay, is this guy any good?" And he goes, "Oh, he's great. Great cover guy." So we're sitting in the office, and I'm telling Bob Flynn about this guy we just signed. And Bob goes, "Well, if he's that good, he needs a nickname, doesn't he?" So I'm saying, "Yeah." I go, "What do you think?" And I don't know whether it was Bob or I who came up with it, but we decided we were going to call him the Glove. And I just started putting that in press releases. Kenny Mack's nickname, and throughout his entire college and professional career, was K-Mac.
K-Mac, yeah.
So we're playing Arizona in a arena semifinal game, and the first play of the game, Kenny Mack tackles Randy Gatewood, who caught a pass in front of him. Gateway gets up and pushes him and goes, "Take that, Glove, take that." And he goes, during the whole game, they're screaming, "Hey, Glove." He goes, "I don't understand where that nickname came. Why are they calling me that?" And I go, "Well," "because I put it in the press release that your nickname was the Glove." And he goes, "No, it's not. My nickname's K-Mac." And I go, "No, it's the Glove now." So that's how that story came about, and it actually seemed to work because over the years he had an interception record in arena football.
Nick Green's got a question here. It's a good question. Which player was the biggest problem child?
Yeah, that's really a tough question because they, let's just say they were all unique in their own way.
You could say Ben Bennett.
No, Ben was never a problem. Actually, Ben was one of the few guys back in the early days that Ben got it. He understood the importance of public relations, and he was actually, I think he might have even been a communications major at Duke, but Ben was actually one of the best guys because I could always count on him to do things. Probably, really none of them were huge problems. There were a couple guys that weren't with us very long, but They weren't with us long enough to become a problem child. One of the guys that I kind of remember is always one of my favorite stories was we're in preseason one year and we're playing Tampa in the first preseason game. And on the way back on the bus, Jay just popped in the practice tape for something to look at on the thing. And we had this one kid trying to make a team. He was from Western Michigan or something. He was a linebacker, fullback type. And we pull into the Citrus Bowl, and he gets up and goes, "Hey, Coach, since we looked at the tape, does that mean we don't have to look at it tomorrow?" Jay goes, "No, you don't have to come in and look at that tape tomorrow, nor do you have to come in Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. You're released." So that was one of the funny ones.
Oh, we lost our service right there. Hopefully we're still going live. If you check and make sure we're still live on Facebook. We keep going anyhow. Back to it. I did meet you before because right in the beginning of the season of 2019.
I don't owe you money, do I?
No.
Okay,
no,
good.
Yeah, you're good. But you were gonna come on board with the Predators when Kenny Mack brought it back, and you had knee replacement surgery.
Yeah, it was really a situation where Kenny asked me if I'd come back in an undefined role, and always loved Kenny Mack, and I was also scheduled to have knee replacement surgery, and they were telling me that I could be out for as long as 2 months, not being able to walk.